Yeah, so just moving side to side and just feeling the two flows. The flow of your body, which is moving into the weighted foot, and the flow of your energy, which is moving into the empty foot. So my body, it's very easy to feel the body. Yes, this is the thing about moving slowly. When you move slowly, you tend to feel the body, feel the weight. Yeah. And when you move quickly, you tend to feel the energy. Yeah. And so we're moving slowly. So I'm really with my body as it goes from foot to foot. So just feel the leg compressing. So the leg compresses, but it really wants to throw me out. So it's very much like a spring. I settle into it. The energy is stored up, but it wants to express. Express. Push out. So yeah, so I just have to just try and keep it moving so it doesn't get a chance to sort of set and become still in the wrong way. So just feel it as a flow. You know, John used to talk about magma, you know, the molten rock when it comes out. You know, when you've seen those clips of the magma just sort of oozing out of the cracks in the ground. So this feeling that it's got some sort of crystalline structure, but it's also flowing. Almost like it's rolling over itself. Yeah, so the imagination is just so important. You just want the feeling, you know, let's say, you know, you read a poem before you started practicing and, you know, and it meant something to you, then it would just transform your practice, yeah, because that would change your energy. Yeah, so we just want that ability to almost recreate the world through the work that we do. And it doesn't matter whether it's going to last. I mean, it's good that it doesn't, yeah. It's good that, you know, it's like, you know, you come back to it the day after and you think, how could I have been so stupid? You know, because it's not really real. It's that sort of transition stage between the imaginary and the real. That's what we're interested in. If it's too real, then it's too substantial. It's of substance. And if it's not real enough, if it's too imaginary, it's just virtual, you know, that it only exists inside my head. So I just want that sort of transition stage. So I can make magic with my spirit and my imagination and my work, but it only lasts whilst it's happening. It's, you know, it's like when poets write something, most of what they write, they throw away because when they come back to it the day after, it's just flat, you know. They haven't quite captured the spirit. And same with artists, you know, most of what they do, they throw away. And often they'll need someone else, like a close friend, to come in and tell them what works, you know, what communicates, because it's very difficult to know yourself, because of course what you do communicates to you, but it may be nonsense to someone else. And just allowing the movement to just be with the breathing. Yeah, so what you want really is to just get into the body. Yeah. When you're in the body, then you're very much sort of in the center and your space is all around you. When you're in the mind, you're very much looking out to something that's in front of you. So we just want to feel our physicality and just feel ourselves in the thick of it, in the thick of the action. So you're creating a world with your work and your spirit, but you're right in the middle of that world. It's not just something that's in front of you. So just feel it all around. If it's something in the mind, if it's too much in the mind, then it'll be in front, because the mind is so much with what we see. And of course, we don't have eyes in the back of the head, so we can't see behind us. So my body is flowing. I came across this book that's just been published, and it's about poetry or prose poetry about stones, and rocks and things. And he calls, it's got a title, can't remember what it's called now, but the subtitle is Exploring the Lithic Imaginary, yeah, which is beautiful. So lithic just means of stone. So if you were to take it like a really long time lapse movie of the Earth, like with 1,000 years between each shot, then you'd see that everything is flowing. Yeah? The mantle is flowing. So everything that's solid, that seems to be solid, is actually moving. So this is what we'd like to be able to feel. So when the feet are on the ground, we're not just feeling the stability of the ground, the hardness, the inert hardness. We're feeling the life in the ground. You're feeling these rumbling rhythms. And really letting them come up into the body. Yeah. So let's just stand. Yeah. And just feel the feet on the ground and just feel the earth. When we bend down and touch the ground, and you just really feel the earth just sucking all of that excess neurotic, nervous, high frequency energy out of you. Just feel it here with the feet. The earth is just draining me. But I'm also receiving something. But what I'm receiving is much deeper. It's got a really long wavelength, yeah? Yeah, so a lot of meditation, when you're getting into real slowness, you're sitting there for 40 minutes and you're just connecting with rhythms that are just really long. And even the lifespan, so you're going to live 70-odd years, and so there are rhythms that you'd need to live that long to actually pick up on, yeah. So the earth is sucking the excess, the surplus out of me, and I'm sucking something up, yeah. So this sense of wriggling almost, or when you suck through a straw and you pull your cheeks in, so there's this contraction to draw. It's the same thing here. So something in your belly is contracting and something in your spine is twisting in order to sort of wriggle this energy up out of the ground. So when you're standing, you're really active. Okay, now let's just do this in time with the breathing. So just marking the breath and just really letting the breathing come into the spine. So it's not just my lungs and my diaphragm, it's everything. Yeah. So this is the thing. We start with something incredibly simple that actually only needs very limited resources to set in motion. And we just keep on going until every muscle in our body, every fiber of our being, as John would say, is involved in the action. So the spine is whipping back, and then the spine whips forwards. And just feeling those two actions overlapping. My belly is already pulling to pull me forwards before the previous action is finished. Ooh, and I'm pulling in. So, it says in the classics, the spirit is excited, but internally gathered. So to excite the spirit, you need to do this. This is the phase that excites the spirit. Basically, my lower back strengthening and arching, and me just saying, "Way, look at me." Yeah. But the bit that controls the spirit, that stops it from, So the spirit is excited but internally gathered. So the bit that internally gathers is the other phase, is this phase, yeah. And so really, they both need to be there at the same time. So, both the back and the belly have to be stronger. So the back has to be stronger so that we can be expressing all the time. We're ready, like a martial artist, who's just ready for the next attack. But this needs to be there because we don't want to leak, yeah. So expressing and withdrawing. Expressing and just really get it into the spine. So just allow the head to move. The head really whips. The more you can do that, the more you'll get into the body. Because we tend to keep the head unnaturally still because we're in the mind rather than the body. So here you forget the head, you close your eyes and you just let it whip and just enjoy the movement. It's sexual, yeah. It's got a sensuality to it, libidinous. And this is so important for like keeping young, keeping juicy. So the old people tend to be dry. It's a good thing about my old people, they don't get dry. I keep them juicy. Ooh. And then just bring it to a stop. But just feel, when you become really still inside, you're still relative to you, not relative to the room. So your body can be really quite pumpy and and dynamic, but you're still inside, yeah? So so the mind, when it has this concept of stillness, it will tend to lock onto something that it knows is still, yeah? So like the floor or the furniture, and then try and still itself in relation to that. That's completely the wrong way, yeah? And so it's almost like you just got to imagine you don't have eyes. You can't see anything. You can feel the ground beneath your feet. That's all you can do, yeah? And when you really feel it, that ground is moving. It's, yeah, and it's just producing a wobble in you. because you're receiving and giving energy to it all the time. It's not a flat, inert surface. And so the eyes, they're really, there's a real negativity to the eyes because they just block out energy. Yeah? They block out a movement. Yeah, so it's like when you see something that's still, you just say to yourself, I don't want that. That's not real. Yeah. What's real is the life inside me, the pump, the breathing, the passion, the ring muscles that are just contracting and expanding all the time. Well, one of my students today, before this morning, she tried the Powler, the ring muscle exercises. And she just said it was just amazing because she says, I just started, just a very simple exercise with the mouth, where you get it tightening and then opening. And she said, within 5 minutes, my whole body was just going completely spastic, because every part of you just is compelled to get involved, in that movement. And it's really quite revealing. You just realize how much energy, how much passion is actually inside the seemingly most bourgeois of people. Yeah. Okay. And now let's just move side to side. Now just feel the energy. So the energy is in the expanding part. So here, as I move into this leg, this just sort of expands. It really gets big. And that is the flow of energy. Yeah. So the energy will flow into the empty side. Yeah. So if you were moving quickly, then you would tend to be with the energy, or if you were fighting. If you were fighting, you'd have, where your weight is completely irrelevant. It's the hand that's striking that's important, and that's where the energy is. Yeah. The weight will just take care of itself, hopefully. So here, something expands. And just feel the mind. It's like, way. Something expands, but it's almost like I have to really turn away from it. Because if I look at it, I'll spoil it. So here. So it's almost like a timid animal, like a wild animal that you're trying to coax out of its lair. And it'll creep out, but it's always ready to dart back in. And so it's like a rewilding of the spirit. We're just trying to really access that wild part of us that civilization has tried its best to completely destroy and obliterate. Got children in my garden. Yeah, so just imagine if you're walking in nature, and you really want it to keep a low profile, so that the fauna exposed itself. Then you just walk around really quietly and crouched. You'd be trying to be as small as possible, unobtrusive, imperceptible. So it's the same here. Something in you really shrinks into this leg so that wild part of you can just pop out for a moment. Ooh. Yeah, so we'd like this sort of imaginary, this sort of the lithic imaginary, to be of my energy rather than of my mind. Yeah, so it's not a picture that I see in my mind. It's an actuality that tries to sort of ooze out of my body. So it's very physical rather than mental. I mean, it sort of becomes mental when you try to sort of explain it or add detail that isn't really there. It's very much sort of here. So ooh, something in my body just wants to sort of surge out. So it's a bit like you have to gulp. It's, oh, fuck, you know, something's threatening to sort of run away with you just for a fraction of a second before it's just too frightening, and then you have to reel it back in. And then just feel it. So rather than it sort of pulling back in along the path it's come out, just let it continue. Yeah? So you get this, it rounds out. Yeah. And you really want that openness. It's like somehow here that has to open a little bit more so that the fingertips continue along the circle. And that has to happen from the spine to the shoulder blade. So it's just, you've already opened up enough down the arm, and then something here and here needs to open up. And that requires a real sort of intensification in the spirit. Yeah. So we're just trying to sort of just move in such a way that we have to use spirit. We can't do it without. It's totally inauthentic and weak without. So I'm reaching out and ooh. Me and Ty went to the beach, and there was a granddad teaching his grandson how to sort of dive, yeah? And it was just really funny. Because he was saying, you know, you've got to sort of jump and you've got to hit the water head first, yeah? And so you could see him sort of doing that, and at the last minute he'd pull his head up and do a belly flop, yeah? And so it's just, you know, it's difficult. You've got to train yourself so that the fingers, the tips of the fingers are like the diver, and they have to go first. You're being led by the fingertips. Whoa. So you're never cutting across like this. It's always either forwards or back. You're never going against the grain, as John would say. Ooh. Yeah, so the world of energy, it's almost like the opposite of the world of matter. Yeah. So my weight is very much me. You know, so this is my weight moving around. I know where it is because I feel my belly. But the energy is outside. Yeah. So my weight is here, but the spirit is actually here. It's calling me. It's sucking my body into it. So the spirit is always leading the body. And it's just a very different world. Because, of course, spirit is weightless. Not only is it weightless, it's sort of anti-weight. It will always lift if you let it. And so it's incredibly quick. You know, It's like it's got infinite speed. It's everywhere all at once, yeah? But I feel it in the foot. My foot is calling me. My foot is calling me. Yeah, so it's here, but then it has to get here. And it's not as though it has to travel to get there. It's just there. Yeah. So there's this reality that has momentum and inertia, which is the reality of my body. But then there's this reality where of spirit, which can be anywhere at any time, can be everywhere at any time. Yeah. Where? Okay. So let's just bring it back and just, again, just feel it. Yeah, so in one sense, you're sort of standing like a statue with these strong pillar-like legs. But in another sense, it almost feels like you're sitting on a chair and your legs could just sort of dance around, yeah. So they've got that lightness still. They haven't become congested and depressed. And just bring it back to the breathing. So as soon as you start standing, as soon as you become still, the most important thing is not to set, not to become solid. So the best thing is just bring it back to the breathing and feel the breathing moving you. So the breathing is sort of just whipping my spine gently to and fro. So you're just full of this sort of rumbly, passionate energy that's threatening to sort of just become a tidal wave. Yeah. It's very much like, the energy of the waves at the sea. Just imagine, you're in the sea, it's a calm day, and you're just floating. You're just floating with your back, your front facing up. And what you'd feel, you'd feel all these different rhythms. There's this quite quick rhythm, of the sort of just the waves sort of gurgling around. And then you get the rhythm of you being drawn out into the sea and then being washed back up. Yeah. And then there'd be really deep ones. Every now and then a really strong wave comes in. So there's all these different rhythms that your body can be soaking up that you cannot sort of analyze with the mind. Is you just have to allow yourself to be affected by it, to be moved. Okay, now let's just pulling down the rope. So just getting into what we've been doing, but in more like a single weighted way with the upper body. And again, just turning your head away from the hand that's going up so that you don't cramp it. And just going into so I go into this leg in order to reach up with this hand. So it's cross energy. And just relax into it. Just imagine, we were going to do this for half an hour. So you sort of need to pace yourself a little bit. You'd need to just get into the rhythm so that there's a sense that it's almost doing itself. So it becomes a meditation rather than just an exercise. Yeah, so the important thing is just to, as you reach up, just sink into the other leg. Don't let the reach with the arm bring you out of your root. So it should sort of release something from the spine, which can then sink down even better. Yeah, so you can just use your imagination. You're reaching up to the heavens and you're pulling down some good energy and just bringing it into your heart. And just enjoy it, even if it's not enjoyable, especially if it's not enjoyable. So in a way, the most important skill to develop is the ability to change your mood. And then just bring it onto the horizontal plane. Just reaching out and pulling something in. Again, you want to feel as though the pull is actually quite difficult, like you're really pulling something that's difficult to pull, so that you really do activate the belly, the Dan Shen. So just think how hard those sumo guys work. Yeah, so you just need to be strong enough so that you can stay relaxed as you work, largely. And that's really just like a maturity. Because what makes you tense up isn't really the body getting tired, it's resentment in the mind. So the mind wants to stop, so it starts getting annoyed. And then it just tenses up. Partly because it just doesn't appreciate that there's an alternative. Yeah. This is why most people have a noisy mind, because it's never occurred to them that there's an alternative. So don't just be with the body with your mind, be the body. Be the body working. The mind just doesn't come into it. The mind is for like special occasions. The mind is really just the site of awareness. You know, thinking is just, most of the time, it's just unnecessary. You don't need it most of the time, thinking. Because most of the time, you know, you're not having to calculate or create an opinion or all this shit. You just need to be present. And if you're thinking, then you're not present. So astonishment and enthusiasm. So everything is a point of astonishment. It's like you're seeing things for the first time. Because when your spirit comes up lightly, it's a bit like the angel dust or the fairy dust on Tinkerbell's wings, the magic ingredient that allows the children, Wendy and the others, to fly, to enter the imaginary. So everything is sort of shimmering with a light that I've never noticed before. Yeah. So that's what the mind, we just want to get really sensitive. So the mind, we notice more and more as we get older and the more work we do. So we don't need to go to more exciting movies. We're not becoming decadent. You know? We don't need more stimulus. We need less because we see more in the simple. I just can't watch movies anymore. They're just, you know, just unnecessary. You know? Why replace this reality with an artificial one? Yeah. Okay, so let's just bring it. Okay, so it's just really throbbing. Yeah, so we would just want to feel that that single-weighted aspect, the turning aspect, as just being there all the time. So as well as having this throb with the legs and with the breathing, it's also got this, yeah. So like the two snakes that have just reared up and are sort of fighting or courting or mating, and they're just coiling around each other. So that's what your legs are. Your legs are like two snakes reared up from the ground, and the spine is just this twine, and then it branches out into your arms. Yeah. And it's this sort of action. So imagine the two snakes all rubbing against each other. And so that's your two pythons, you know, your two spinal erectors. And they're just playing with each other. It's producing a twist, you know, rather than this sort of turn of Tai Chi. Somehow, almost, it's great to practice this sitting down, you know, because the sitting stabilizes and immobilizes the hips, and then you really get the sort of spine, the muscles close to the spine working. Yeah. So we'd like that action to be the really basic one, the basic primal action of the primitive human body. This sort of wriggle around the spine. And that's really sort of tight and inside. So it's almost like the opposite of this, which is really expansive and big. And now just turning it. But again, just let's try it a bit differently than normal. So normally we would just do this, yeah. So now let's just start it gently. So just get the feet working on the ground. So you have to sort of create a bit of resistance with one foot so that the foot that's doing the moving really has to work. Because it's like we're sort of looking for sort of just to get much more energy into it than is really needed. Because it's that sort of deep, passionate energy we're trying to mobilize. So rather than just working efficiently and softly, it's like something in you really has to sort of make an effort. Yeah, so just the thing of like twisting the feet out in order to produce a turn in this direction. So just let's get that going to start with. So this is very much like you in the thick, you're in the middle, yeah. So this is like moving the weight, yeah. So the foot is the weighted foot that's sort of just, and it's like it's pushing something or spiraling something up through your body. So my body isn't rising, but something is coiling up me, like an ivy or a snake, again, that's twisting around the limb. So it's very different than normal. And normally we'd have this sort of light airiness. This is really sort of so just trying to make it difficult so that we have to really mean it to actually get it done. It's not enough just to slot into a habit and just think about your breakfast. Okay, so there's only a certain amount of that you can do. So let's just bring it back before we do the opposite one. Okay, and now basically the same thing, but now with the pulling of the foot. So now I'm trying to twist the feet the other way. So this is the action that's pulling me in. And it's the more difficult of the two because it's like pulling with the foot. The spirit is outside your body, so the spirit is with the foot. And the secret is to think in terms of using your toes to pull rather than using the ankle to twist. And it's the little toe. So my little toe here extends and then it curls up and that starts pulling me round. So you really have to open up that little toe so that you've got a lot of purchase. So it's all in the preparation, really. It's this part here, and then it will curl up sort of naturally and bring me round. So again, it's just how open can you get before you do the closing. Ooh. It's like, the wider you can open your mouth, the more you can fit in it. So pull round. And here, and pull it in. And then you can get both going. So you're sort of pulling with one foot, turning this way, as this one is, yeah. So this is sort of coiling me up. It's like throwing like a coiling cape around me. And this one is like something boring up through me, like a drill. So something's boring up through me, and then it goes outside and wraps around. Feel the little toe becoming like a foot long. Ooh. The little toe, little finger. Just feel the compartment in the mind that belongs to the little toe. So which part of my mind has to really open up so that the little toe can extend. So for every part of your body, there's a part of the mind. It's what the bodybuilders sort of get into, because they can sort of ping any muscle out. You just say, okay, left pec, and just ping, this is the only muscle that will tense up. So sort of absolute control. That's what we would like. So something's sneaking out, and then I reel it back in. It's like you're fishing. Throwing out the line with the lure, and then hooking something and pulling it in. Okay, and now let's just bring it back, just let everything settle. Feel the internal, the stillness of the mind, but the real moving of the body, all these rhythms and flows inside you. So just feel that the complex nature of the body. So you've got the solid part, which is like the bone. Then you've got all this gooey jelly part, which is the flesh. And they just transmit different energies and different frequencies. And then let's just try just going the way we would normally do it. And just allow what we've just done to sort of creep in on a sort of minor scale. You know, so the feet are still sort of like massaging the ground. You know, so it's the action of the feet on the ground that's turning me as much as my hips. And just feel, you know, when it is the feet, it's completely different energy. It's really intense. Feel the belly tightening up all the time to keep you together. And just really enjoy it. You know, like the Vikings that just sort of, or the samurai that will just run into battle with a laugh, defying death, yeah? With their comrades, willing to die, with a spirit that's absolutely raging. Yeah, so you should almost get to the point where you can't stop. Yeah. Or it's difficult to stop. It's difficult to find what is it that motivates the stop, because the spirit is so vibrant. Yeah, so almost like some part of your mind needs to extricate itself. It needs to sort of just pull out of the activity and just step back and just be able to say, okay, enough is enough. Yeah. You know, so it's just that bit of experience that knows that if you overdo it, you'll ruin tomorrow's practice. Yeah. So everything is geared to work, to the work. Okay, now let's just finish by just crouching down. So just feel how it just instantly changes the mood. So it's sort of, you get drawn in. And you just got this sort of mood of sort of ruthlessness. So just feel the lower back and the sacrum widening. Just feel the spine just becoming fecal, becoming like the embryo in the womb, just a simple C shape. It doesn't yet have the S shape, which only develops when the child starts walking. And so simple, that's the operative word really in everything that we do. And it's like a simple that comes from the body, not the mind. So when the body is simple, the movements can be incredibly elaborate and sort of impossible to copy if the person didn't have the energy coming from the right place. And just feel the spine. Each vertebra is like a little knobble that's sticking out your back. Just feel it. And then the moment of truth, just placing the hands on the ground and just feel the ground. Oh, fuck. It just drains you in a really compassionate way. You're like the mother that picks up the child in distress. So the earth is the mother. And then just rock a bit of weight over the arms and just feel them filling with strength from the ground. It's almost like it is an energy, yeah, that's coming up, and it's slow, so it gradually comes up. And you just want to wait until it meets in the spine between the shoulder blades. Yeah. So that whole arch has become infused with energy from the ground, but it's really like this is really magmatic. It's not a word, but yeah, sort of rock, lithic flows. That's why I hate this floor. I can't stand wooden floors. You know, it's not even wood, it's sort of plastic. You think, oh, this is a nice wooden floor, and then you inspect it and you realize all the boards have the same design on them. And just rocking back. And just feel it when you take the hands off the ground. Yeah. So suddenly it's the feet that are responsible for draining you. Yeah. So they have, the legs have like a real responsibility. So this is why it's so important to be sort of really open in the hips and the groin, the sacroiliacs, so that the earth can just drain stuff from the head and the heart down to the ground, because the arms don't do it. Yeah. John used to do like a standing meditation, just sort of next to a wall, with just his hands on the wall. And you know, he recommended it, but he never explained what it was all about. It's only sort of recently I've sussed. Yeah, so quietening the mind, it shouldn't be such a big deal. It's just that, you know, there's so many things that conspires against it nowadays. So wearing shoes, for one thing, which I can't think of anything quite so damaging. Having electricity running around in the house, which all sort of just brings that sort of neurotic energy up into the head. And just that sort of general tightness in the groin, you know, all these sort of, we have hang-ups about shitting, pissing, and fucking, yeah? So it's all groin. And sitting on toilets, yeah? It's really dumb. Rather than squatting like this. Well, Roberto confided in me that sometimes when he goes out in the morning to take the dog for a walk, and suddenly he needs a shit, and he says there's nothing more enjoyable than just squatting down outside and shitting. I thought, yeah, I can connect with that. Okay, so let's bring it up and just into riding horse one last time. Yeah, so we just need legs that are sort of just fluid enough to be able to go down there, stay there a while, and just come up, no big deal, yeah? It didn't take you half an hour to get up. I mean, it takes you half an hour to settle into standing, but the legs can easily manage it. That's just a matter of practice, yeah. Again, just feel everything we've done still there. It's all resonating inside. So you just want the practice that you do to sort of just create an energy, sort of create a feeling that can resonate through the day, so that you can just stop whatever it is that you're doing and just reconnect. It's not as though you have to start doing some of it. You can just connect with the energy, because on some level it's still buzzing inside you. So it's, you know, that's important to somehow keep it going through the day, rather than just having a slot where you practice and then forget about it for the rest of the time. So that's okay to start with. This is something that John sort of really talked about at one point. And it's difficult, but everything's difficult. Difficulty is not an excuse. It should be a stimulation. Okay, and then just bringing it up. So when I'm standing like, I just always think of that picture of Sun Lutang where he's standing like this, yeah. And he's so sort of neat and together. He's quite short, like most of the Chinese. And just almost look like there's like a cocoon that's coiled around him, that's pulling everything in, but it's just ready to explode out at any moment. So it's a system that's contained, but got all these internal pressures. And he had a real twinkle in his eye. Okay, let's finish.